for Sissoko and returns. Terran Campbell running out of room, finds a seam around Becky. My word, Terran Campbell! Slowly towards the goal area. Perfect cross and a finish for the first as a nine strike. Louis Latanzio.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CPL Newsroom Show. Christian Jack alongside, as usual, Charlie O'Connor-Clark. On this week's show, we recap a week of all 4 games this past long weekend. And boy, oh boy, away wins are starting to become a real trend in the CPL. I've got an incredible stat about that later on in the show I'll share with you. But results this past long weekend where we saw 15 goals scored in 4 games were as follows. Valor 1, Pacific 2. Mateo de Brienne's goal in the first half was cancelled out by a brace by the Golden Boot leader, Alejandro Diaz. 2 goals in 3 minutes, enough for the Champs to win in Winnipeg. Cavalry 2, FC Edmonton 0. Joe Mason and Karifa Yao both in the first half. Atletico Ottawa 0. Forge 4, Abubakar Sissoko, 2 from Terran Campbell and 1 from Noah Jensen with a statement victory for the lead leaders. And on the holiday weekend was recapped by Halifax Wanderers 2, York United 4. Jordan Wilson, Azazi Di Rosario, Louis Laurie Latanzio put the team up by 3-0 away from home, followed by goals by Eric Santos, a second from Di Rosario and Akeem Garcia, as York United get their biggest away win of the season so far. And we have headlines. That's right, Arabin Pepel's transfer to Luton Town from the CPL, Charlie, is finally official. And this is another great story for the Canadian Premier League as a young Canadian gets a chance in a really big league. Luton Town in the Championship were very close to getting in the Premier League last season. You have a terrific behind-the-scenes look at this transfer. That's a fantastic read on our website, CanPL.ca. Your thoughts overall writing that and big move for Pepel?
Yeah, it's really exciting. I think maybe one of the worst kept secrets around the CPL for a couple of weeks now, but finally official, and we're happy for it to be so. I don't know. I think, in my opinion, this might be the biggest CPL to abroad move yet. You know, the Championship is a massive, massive level. Luton Town were in the promotion playoffs just last season, so they're challenging to get to the Premier League this season again. But it's a fascinating one. Yeah, you mentioned that piece up on the site now. It kind of breaks down how these sorts of moves come about with these young players. Like, how would a Championship club even hear about Arabin Pepel? And it's kind of an interesting story about how originally there was this kind of agreement with Forest Green, and he went over there, and basically what partly the CPL's football development office, along with Cavalry FC, sort of talked to a couple of different clubs, and Luton Town sees him scoring all these goals in the CPL, and they get involved, and obviously that's a much bigger move for Arabin. So it's really fascinating, and we're obviously really excited for Bim to go and kind of do it over there. He's got what sounds like a long-term contract over there, so that should be an interesting one to watch over the next little while at this club.
Yeah, long-term contracts, obviously sell-on fees in there as well, and clauses, which is good for the Canadian Premier League. As we speak, Tommy Wheeldon Jr. currently addressing the media, not only on this transfer, but obviously ahead of their game tomorrow. Our very own Mitchell Tierney on that press conference, and we'll join the show live later on to let us know what Tommy's thoughts on that. And again, you can read Charlie's piece on CanPL.ca as another young Canadian player gets an outstanding move. You talk about it in the Championship last season. Effectively, that makes Luton Town one of the top 26 clubs in England. And they're going out there and signing a Canadian, and a young Canadian at that. Not loaning him out immediately, signing him in, bringing him in, making a big deal of it. And you can check Luton Town's outstanding socials as well today to see how they're excited about that move as well. So that's a major headline in our league today. The other one, of course, is Pacific tonight take on FC Waterhouse of Jamaica in the second leg of CONCACAF play. You can watch that as usual live on One Soccer, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. The busiest man in Canadian soccer media, Charlie O'Connor-Clark, will also be all over that game as well. We'll be covering that at the league, and again, watch that on One Soccer later. We will preview that as Marco Bustos joins us live on the show as well to preview that game. 0-0 from the first leg in Jamaica last week, and a big crowd expected at Starlight Stadium on the island tonight as Pacific try and break ground and make history for that club by getting through to the next stage of Concacaf League and one step closer possibly to next year's Concacaf Champions League. More on Pacific later. Let's welcome in AGR. We'll go out west for our own West Coast correspondent. AGR is here, but he was East Coasting it this weekend. To Ottawa we go for a top-of-the-table clash as Atletico came in unbeaten in 5 AGR. Forge 4 wins in a row. Something had to give, and in the end, it was the Hamilton side that was dominant in the capital as you covered this outstanding performance by the away team.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite the performance by Forge. I was expecting another tight, cagey affair coming in. We saw the first two, I guess, legs of this 4-game season series at Tim Hortons Field. Ottawa managed to steal a win and then draw. Not something we see often against Forge in their own building. Forge, Ottawa, the only team Forge hadn't beat this season. Meanwhile, Ottawa obviously had beaten everyone at least once. You thought it was going to be another close game, knowing how Ottawa is. But for whatever reason, Ottawa are prone to these big score lines, on some days, as Valor and Forge know. And on this day, Forge were perfect. It wasn't by any means their most dominant performance. Say, if you look at the numbers, they only generated 1.5 expected goals. They had 4 shots on target, but it was just so ruthless. It felt like every time they got the ball into the box, they scored. And that's a tough blow for Ottawa. I mean, we saw how well they've defended this year, how well they've been in these big games. And this was a big let off, I suppose, in the sense that they had a chance to further cement their title credentials. And Forge just walked all over them in a game that not only sets that back a little, it kind of makes Ottawa, look at the drawing board, a little. Obviously, they're allowed games like this, so I don't think it's going to be one that they're going to be too disappointed about. I think Carlos Gonzalez was quite diplomatic about it post-game, but it still hurts to just see Forge walk all over them the way they did. But to give credit to Forge, they're walking over everyone right now. 5 games, 5 wins in a row. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Alex, you said that they were kind of ruthless in this game, and I think that's a good word for it. I think this is a bit of a statement from Forge. They see the last couple of weeks, Ottawa is taking a lot of headlines. They're having these big results, and they'd obviously been in Hamilton and beaten them just a few weeks ago. But Forge have this in their locker, probably more than any other club in the league, that they can just go anywhere and bury a team, right? It's something that maybe is something that we actually spoke about last week when Ottawa did this to York. Ottawa didn't have a lot of these big wins where they just put 2, 3, 4 goals on a team and the game is really never in doubt. Forge has done that a lot of times this year at home and away. Alex, you mentioned the attacking depth. Obviously, Terran Campbell coming into this game. What has impressed you most about Forge's ability to just get at teams and attack them with kind of that killer instinct like that?
Yeah, well, what's scary about Forge is just that anyone can step up on any given day. I mean, I've, watched, a lot of Forge games this year. They haven't necessarily stood out to me as much as they might have in previous years, or even 2019 when it was the Borges and Becker show. But that's just because they're so much more ruthless and refined. They've almost, Bobby Smear noticed 4 years in, he's got the regular season down to an art. It's just about cruising, getting partnerships going, getting bodies out on the field, rotating. He rotates all the time too, which is not something we see typically for a side doing so well. And the attack is a great example about it. I mean, we talked all this week, Wubens Passius. I mean, Mitch wrote a great article about Wubens Passius. In the pregame conferences, everyone's talking about Wubens Passius, and then the CPL's all-time goal scorer goes out and gets 2 goals, 1 assist in 60 minutes. I mean, how demoralizing is that if you're Ottawa? The fact that a guy like Tristan Borges, who's been in such great form, had a supposedly quiet game, by his standards, just 1 assist. I mean, we forget Kyle Becker, David Chouanier, who came off the bench unusually in this one, also added an assist to continue a great season. You just look through the names. There's not just depth, but there's quality. And that's just indicative all throughout the roster. I mean, the fact that they've dealt with so many injuries to their backline, still no Daniel Kretz, and they've been playing, Alexander Achinoti-Johnson, who got his 100th cap in the CPL, playing him at center back, and they're still the best defensive team. I mean, that sort of depth all over the pitch is really impressive, and I think that's why when it comes to the playoffs, Forge is going to be such a tough beast to unearth this year, even harder than they were to unearth last year when Pacific did it.
Yeah, you mentioned it, Alex. 5 game winning streak now. That ties, I think, a club record. And in your analysis piece, you used a really good word, commanding, and I thought that was a really good way of describing this performance. With more on this, let's go back to the nation's capital. Reaction from Forge's top man himself. Here's Bobby Sminiotis.
The one thing we wanted to do is make sure we keep on this run that we've been on. We've been playing some very good football, going back probably, I say, 13 games. And within those 13 games, we had some points stolen from us from Ottawa in Hamilton. And I think the guys had that in the back of their mind. And not so much of a revenge for the game, but how we make sure that a dominant performance turns into 3 points. So we needed to be a little bit more forceful in the way we were going to the goal and how we made our movements. And that's, I think, the one thing we tweaked today. And we knew that if we can get the first goal, that changes the dynamic of the game and a little bit of the game plan of our opponent today, who's been doing a fantastic job this season. And I think the guys did that. We were up 2-0. That starts opening up the field a little bit more and gives us the spaces that sometimes we need to play. But even before that, I thought our guys were excellent tactically. They got into the half spaces where we needed to be in what was a little bit of a congested midfield in the way they started, with one extra midfielder between McKendry, Bassett, and Sissoko, a little bit different a look than they usually have. So the guys were excellent in getting out there and getting it tactically done. And, it's what we've told them. We've been playing some good football. It's not so much about being at the top of the table, but it's getting these wins. And now we're up to 10, and we need to keep on adding to that.
Very, very impressive performance, and it's been a good run from them. They had a brilliant run in 2019, but this run right now and their attacking flair, I think it's pretty unique to see just how good they are. Think about this, 9 wins from their last 11. The only 2 they didn't win were the home games against Valor and Ottawa that Bobby mentioned there. They feel like they dominated those games, but just couldn't put it away. But in those 9 wins, that's 30 goals scored in those 9 games now, which is remarkably impressive for this team. You mentioned it as well, AGR. Before we get back to you on this, Terran Campbell, 2 goals and an assist. He's in great form again. Let's go back and hear from him after this one.
It was a big game for us. We knew coming today we had games in hand, so if we got to win today, we could go top of the table with that. So it was just a big game for us, and we were all ready for it, and we came out with intensity, and we stuck to our game plan of just playing football, and the things will come, the goals will come for us. So eventually they did, and it turned out our way today.
We should stress nobody, and I mean nobody, has torn this team apart, Ottawa's team, like that. I mean, even the Valor game, Ottawa had a different looking team. It was a different kind of matchup. This back four has been, fluid back three has been standout, Alex, this season when you think of what they've got. Tissot, obviously, Espejo, Becky, and Acosta. They made some very ordinary with some individual mistakes. Was it just a rare night off for them, or was there a little bit else there that you thought was maybe a bit more concerning?
I think it's, ultimately, I don't think this is too concerning right now. I think at the end of the day, Carlos Gonzalez did a good job of playing out. Forge had 4 shots on target. You expect the form that Nathan Ingham's been in for most of the season, the back line, that on most days, not all 4 of those end up in the net. You just look back at the goals, too. I mean, Abubakar Sissoko scores from such a tight angle. Great finish from him, really. It can't be said, just the way he curled it between Ingham's hand and leg to make it awkward. Even look at Terran Campbell's goal, the way he scored from that angle. That's not a shot he's putting in all the time. So I think for Ottawa's defense, they showed, philosophically what they're doing. For the most part, it continued to work. They kept Forge to the lower chances. I mentioned the XG as well. The XG wasn't exactly high. I think that was more just an indication of Forge's quality. I think the one worry for Ottawa, though, is in some games when it tends to rain, it really pours. I think of, that Valor game where, they have an off night and it turns into 6-1. Not only is that just, demoralizing those sorts of results, but, goal difference and those sorts of stuff, they always matter. At the end of the day, you want to have a good goal difference. You want to not be letting in 6 goals in a game like that. Or, you look at other games where when they're not at it, when they lost to Edmonton to give Edmonton their first win, or even in this game, when it's not, with Ottawa, you have to give them credit because they've been on in so many games. But one thing to watch for is when they're off, it's not been pretty. And say another example is, say Forge and Ottawa meet in the first round of the playoffs. It's still very early, but it's very much a possibility. First leg, you go down 4-0 versus 2-0. It's the second leg is a whole different story, and you can't be allowing those results to snowball. So if there's one thing, if I'm Carlos Gonzalez, I'm looking at, hey, every team's allowed to have an off night. Everyone around the league has off nights. So you watch Cavalry, you watch Forge, Pacific, they have off nights. The difference is you can't let it snowball like that. Even if you're going to lose, make it a 1-2-0 loss. Make it something where you can really take something from it and go into the next game. And I think that'll be something they'll look to learn as they prepare for, what looks to be their first playoff run at this point, although it's super early and they still have to keep up their form from earlier in the season to make it such.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt. I mean, you think about that game. For me, you mentioned it, and that's why I smile when you talked about it. If those teams meet in the playoffs, and they've got one more meeting, by the way, at the end of this month, but Forge wanted to send a message because they didn't get to do that at home in both Ottawa games, right? They felt like they should have won both. They didn't end up winning either of them. So that they wanted to send a bit of a message. The last thing they wanted to do was go into that potential playoff matchup, not being able to get one over, I guess, the new upstarts to their crown a little bit. With more on this, let's go back to it. You mentioned it. Here's Carlos Gonzalez after this game.
We have to deal with the frustration. I think that it's a game that we have to learn from it, because it's a game that we are going to have, we hope, in the future. And as I said, if you take a whole picture of the game, I think that the result is not the real difference between the both teams today. The reality is that I think that they capitalize in their goal situations. We gave them many chances. Today we were a little bit careless in certain moments, and we lose balls that make them play with big spaces. And we knew that if we play a game of big spaces against Forge, that they have great individuals, that they love to run, that they have great talent, that they usually make the right decision, probably we were going to lose that game. So once you start to lose, you start to open the game. And once you start to be brave to get there and open the game, the reality is that you are starting to give them the spaces that they want to play with. So it was a little bit about this.
Fantastic stuff. AJR, quickly before I let you go, I know you're all over everywhere on CanPL.ca, One Soccer as well, but you were yesterday with League One as well, BC, with the finals. How was that? Just give our audience a little bit of an idea about how that was.
Oh, it was a fantastic day for soccer in BC. I'm hoping everyone who got out or were able to watch the streams of the games were able to enjoy it as much as I was. It was a beautiful, sunny BC day, and it was such a great showcase. I mean, first of all, congratulations to both winners. On the women's side, it was the Whitecaps, the young Whitecaps, filled mostly with 15, 16-year-olds. They took on Varsity, who had dominated all year long. They went down early to 1-0. Varsity beat them in both games in the season. You thought it was over, done and dusted. Someone jokingly said, like, oh, this is 4-0. Let's just, go get a rest and prepare for the next final later. The Whitecaps, the young Whitecaps, stuck with it, scored 2 goals in the last 5 minutes of the game to win 2-1 right in the 90th minute. Fantastic result for them. And then in the men's division, it was Varsity versus TSS Rovers, the supporters-owned club TSS Rovers. They went up early 1-0 on a penalty. Everyone got super excited. They have great fans. They were cheering. Varsity got one back, 70th minute or so, goes to penalties right in front of the Rovers supporters. The Rovers win it with a nice save from their goalkeeper, Justin Sandu. All the fans storm the field. They get to lift the trophy. They actually gave the trophy right away to the supporters as well to lift it. So 2 great games in the women's and men's division. It's going to be awesome to see this league grow. I think later this year, Varsity gets to go to the Interprovincial Championship as well between, PLSQ, League One Ontario's Women's League. So that's going to be an awesome showcase. But in terms of League One BC itself, it was such a great, just finals and atmosphere. 1,600 fans showed up to the first ever final. And I'm just so excited to see what this league can become in future years, because for year one, I think they surpassed most expectations that they probably set out.
As usual, well said, my man, and that's the truth. 1,600 fans supporting the fabric of youth of football and soccer in this country, men's and women's. That's what it's all about, and building a culture in the great country that we have and the sport that we love as well. So all levels, that's why we're here to talk about it. As usual, AGR, check all his socials out. We appreciate you, buddy. We'll speak to you again next week. Thanks again.
See you guys.
Great to see you. It's just a fantastic storyline. Charlie, let's move on now to more Canadian Premier League action. And you were all over this game for us.
Oh, boy.
You say, oh, boy, but boy, we've had some bad games this year sometimes at the Wanderers grounds. I say difficult games. You covered this one. Coming in, Halifax and York had combined to score just 4 goals in 8 games in the month of July. Yeah. But once again, we got a holiday goals bonanza. They did it last year to us. They did it this year. But for one, though, it was a game of fantasy, and for the other, a stuff of nightmares, Charlie.
Yeah. I don't know which side we really want to start with, because one of these is going to be a lot more fun to talk about. So maybe we'll start with York.
Always go with fun.
Yeah, this is a really, really important result for York, I think. They obviously went through that really rough patch in May, June, early July, where they're just not scoring at all. They're not getting results. They break that skid a week and a half ago in Calgary with that quite gutsy 1-0 win. But that wasn't the same as this here, where they win 4-2. They put 4 goals on an opponent, and that's not something that has really been in their locker this season. We can see the goals there in a highlight reel, and just these kinds of goals are not things that York have been able to score at all this year. These plays in the box, these one-touch finishes, these just kind of shows of that killer instinct when you've got the ball. I think one of the best the best indicators of this is the second goal, Osaze Di Rosario's first one, where they have 4 men in the box at the point that the ball goes in the net, which is, not something that York have been good at doing, is getting men into the box. And that's maybe the most impressive thing here, is they were faster in this game than I think we've seen them in most other games. They were getting those crosses through the box. They were attacking from the ways that Martin Nash wants them to. We know that he said specifically that when they attack, he wants those balls to be played out wide rather than through the middle where they can be picked off. And that's exactly what they did in this game. We see the crosses come in, and we see enough bodies in the box to finish those chances. Osaze Di Rosario with just a fantastic game where he's finding those spaces, getting on those balls. And he's maybe one of the only attackers on this team that's got any confidence at the moment.
Yeah.
But, in theory, that improves now. York had scored 3 first half goals all year coming into this game, and they scored 2 in this game. So you can just tell that this team, I guess, went into this game thinking, okay, we have had enough of this down period. We're not going to be sad anymore. We're just going to go at this team, and we're going to score the goals that they haven't been scoring all year. You don't need every goal you score to be an absolute belter of individual quality. That's not how teams win games. This is how teams win games, when you score these goals by just playing these crosses across the 16-yard or the 18-yard box, having guys in the right positions at the back post or around the penalty spot. So this is just a really, really important result for York, and maybe something that they can build on going forward, because they haven't had a lot of that recently.
Yeah, 4-1-1 now when opening the scoring in games this season. And I think they've done that 3 out of the last 4 games after going on a horrendous run of not scoring. I think only 1 goal in 9 matches prior to that. Let's go back to the Wanderers grounds reaction on the winning coach. Here's Martin Nash.
We'll see how it goes this week. See how guys pull through. I thought fantastic effort from the guys today. They gave everything I asked. They did. They've had a great attitude all year. It's just been tough with goal scoring, to be fair. So it was good to get some today, and then we got another tough game next week on the road. So we'll see how guys pull through this week.
That game next week is referring to on Sunday at Valor in Winnipeg. He said it's been a tough goal scoring, but now with 4 in his last 4, one of the hottest strikers in a league full of hot strikers. Yes, we're looking at you, Alejandro Diaz and Wubers Pasillas. What about Osaze Di Rosario? 4 in 4. Let's go back to the grounds and hear from him.
Well, we had to finish off the year. I'm thinking I still want to add my achievements to be, of course, one of the top goal scorers. But, from here, it's been an up and down year, of course, like you said. But, I think, when these games show, our quality, what we're able to do, even though we got 2 goals scored on us, but we're able to score lots of goals, like 4 goals, and I'm able to, bag a brace. It's my first time getting a brace this year, so I'm happy for that. And, I'm just going on to the next game from here. I'm not thinking too far ahead, just the next game.
Charlie, in your analysis, you referred to York as bringing this new attacking ruthlessness. That it looks like their back 3 starting to come together as well, which is certainly good. Yeah. All the things that are ticking that aren't ticking for Halifax. They have no fluidity. They do not certainly have any kind of attacking ruthlessness. This has been a dreadful run. They had that 1 win when I was at the game, actually, on the island in Pacific by 3 goals to 0 that thought that could be a momentum for them. But instead, it's been nothing more of an aberration, really. I mean, since winning 2 of their first 4 in April, Halifax have now won just 3 of 13 games, conceding 22 goals in those 13 games. I know we talk a lot about what's going wrong with them going forward, but 22 goals in 13 games they've conceded now. 4-time conceding 3 or more, and 3 times at home. This was once a team, Charlie, that you knew at home at least would give you that solid defensive performance. But now they're getting torn apart by what was coming in the worst form team in the league in York.
Yeah, it is rough times out east at the moment. The home form is maybe the most concerning thing to me. How this team's bread and butter used to be how much of a fortress that Wanderers grounds was. No team wanted to go play there ever. They've lost 4 times by multiple goals there this year. Forge destroyed them twice, 3-0 and 4-0. Right. Ottawa did it, and now York did it, and they're not a team that's been scoring a lot, as you mentioned. This Halifax team they move the ball kind of slowly. Stephen Hart seems to say that every week, that they're not moving the ball quickly enough. They're not getting players into the box, which is, again, what York was able to do in this game. They're losing the individual battles. They're second to balls. Andre Rampersad kind of took responsibility after this game. He was definitely not a very happy man after this, but he said, the first goal that York scores is that set piece. Jordan Wilson should never be beating Andre Rampersad to a header. Right. I think Rampersad has several inches in height on him, and that's kind of his marker. He's supposed to hold him off. Rampersad kind of put his hand up. He says that shouldn't be happening. But these are the things that are happening to Halifax at the moment. Stephen Hart gave us, I think, maybe the most depressing stat I've heard in a while after this game, when he said that this Halifax team, they've played, I think it's 17 games now. Their third leading player in shots on target is Joao Morelli, who has played 180 minutes this season, hasn't played since April in the second game of the season. That's not good enough for this team, right? They just can't seem to find those chances. They'll have the ball. They'll win balls very well in midfield, as they always will. They'll get the ball sometimes into the attacking third, but then they just run out of ideas when they get there, right? They can't put the ball on net. They can't put the ball in the net, certainly. It's kind of, I don't really know what the solution is. Obviously, you hope that Fumpa Mwanwe comes in and continues to play as he did. I thought he actually did have another bright performance, especially in the first half of this game. He had a couple of those chances, and maybe if one of them goes in, it's a different story. But at the end of the day, it's sad times in Halifax, because this has really been a rough period for them.
Yeah, collectively look very, very lost right now. You referred to it in your analysis, Stephen Hart being very somber, and I thought it was a really good word for that too. Here is the reaction of the Halifax gaffer after this one.
No, I don't think we have. We really don't have any excuses. When you look at the game, I was just going over the chances. You have to realize that the opening chance of the game, we got two chances, and we didn't hit the target, right? And if you take one of those chances, who knows what would happen, and a number of times we got into good positions, but we didn't test the keeper enough. We didn't score, but we were going over some statistics 2 days ago, and Morelli hasn't played since the second game of the season, and he's our third leading shots on target player still. So that alone should tell you that where our problems lie.
We'll end on a high, and shout out to friend of the show, Jordan Wilson, for his goal. The first goal as a father, his first game as a father, and he scores right away. So fantastic news for him. Bring in our own Benedict Rhodes next. Benny, great to see you from Halifax. We head to Winnipeg, where Valor had the week off after a grueling travel schedule previously. This time it was Pacific who were the ones needing to rotate and refresh, stopping off in Manitoba from Jamaica and CONCACAF play. This was a significant match for Valor in their attempt to threaten the top four. But in the end, Benny, the performance was good enough to get it, but somehow the result did not work out. What happened?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of saying it. They really needed a result here, I think, to really cement their spot among those kind of leading group of 4 or 5 teams. And they got off to a good start here, as you see if you're watching on YouTube. Mateo Debrian scored his second goal of the season, his first start. But he was very good in this game, and the first hour or so of this game, it was all Valor. Like Pacific looked tired after traveling. They didn't look like they were involved at all in this game. It took them over an hour, I think, to get the first shot on target. And then as you're seeing here on the screen, Valor just collapsed with 2 goals in 2 minutes from Alejandro Diaz. There's a red card just before that to Daniel Escanio for a second yellow rather for simulation, and that kind of changed the outlook of this game. I guess Valor kind of just deflated, and Pacific took full advantage of it with 2 quick goals.
Yeah, they certainly did. 2 touches, 2 goals for the leading goal scorer in the league, Alejandro Diaz. That's how it's done, I suppose. We'll get to Pacific more in a second, but Valor are only halfway through their home games this season. They had 1 postponed, remember. They've scored 6 goals in 7 games at home this season. Their XG is no different. It's 6.8, so they're not exactly not had a chance. They're not exactly creating those chances either. But 6 of their next 7 games are at home. So I guess by Labor Day, Benny, we're going to have an idea. What can you see in their opening hour performance that you think that can be encouraging? Because for an hour, as you said, they outplayed the champs.
Yeah, they were kind of ruthless. They were pressing everything. They were outrunning Pacific. They were outworking Pacific. And if you do that against the reigning champions, you're in a pretty good place, I think. And you saw it on the goal for Debrienne there. Like Pacific player had the ball and 4 players just swarmed them. And if you do that, you're going to give yourself a good chance to win the ball back in a high position right outside the penalty area, and it led to their goal. And they probably should have had a few more goals from so similar positions, and they just couldn't take advantage of them, and it cost them.
Yeah, that's kind of the story. I mean, obviously, maybe you expect not quite that level of dominance in the first half, but you maybe expect Valor to come out on the front foot, with Pacific kind of having to travel such a long way from Jamaica for this game. And I'm sure that it's hard to recenter your focus after a game like that onto a road game in Winnipeg. But even still, I think that Valor did have, the adequate hunger that they needed coming into this game. They knew how big this was for them in the standings in terms of not letting that entirely get away from them. It's unfortunate for them that they come out of this with nothing, and possibly that 4th place spot is getting away from them. But there are a lot of positives, especially that first hour. Not many teams can do that to Pacific, is push them back so much and take those chances, have those set pieces and things like that.
There's a lot to like about the team, no? Like, yeah, I feel like when you watch them, they're in every game almost. It's just, I think Phil DeSantis has done a good job. They keep the ball well. They brought a couple of good players. Obviously, the red card made a big difference. We know that. It just feel like the next great step maybe is the one thing you talk about in sports is like knowing how to win games. Win, lose, or play well or don't play well. Know how to win it, finish it off. When you get that lead, and that's something we'd have to figure out. Phil DeSantis after the game was pretty adamant in his appraisal of his performance. Let's listen to that.
I think that we were, until that time, not by a little, by far, the best team on the field. And even after going down 2-1, we managed to still, with a man down, be the best team on the field.
Team on the field. That was suddenly echoed by his skipper, Andrew Jean-Baptiste, who again was very, very good in this game. Has been massive since they came back. Let's hear from him after this one.
The first half, says a lot. Going toe-to-toe with the defending champs and, a team that is obviously competing for winning the championship again. And, they came to our home and we put up with them the whole way through, and obviously we looked like the better team out there in so many aspects of the game. They can make some excuses and say that they didn't have a few players on the field, and we could say the exact same thing. We had a young kid that hasn't started many matches for us, and he came in and put a goal on them. So, and that right there shows the depth of our bench and the quality that we're able to put out into the field, regardless of if we feel like our best 11 isn't out there. So.
The young kid he referred to, obviously, Mateo Debrienne, the young Canadian. What of Pacific, Benny? They end July 4 wins from 4. 10-5 they outscored teams. 3 of those wins basically away from home. Diaz got 6 goals in the month, same as Wubens Pacias, by the way. 2 more. What did you see about this team that seems to be flowing with confidence right now?
Yeah, you said confidence. That's a good way of saying it. They know even if they go down, that they're not ever out of a game. They'll always have the quality and the players capable of getting back into a game. And just look at who was involved in the first goal. It was Aparicio to Bustos to Diaz. Those are 3 of the premier players in this league, and and they know these guys will always give them a chance, and they managed to keep it to just one, and then when they had this was the first one, they were full of confidence. They knew we're not going to let this slip. We need to just find that second one, and I think it's 2 minutes and 1 second later, Habibullah has that nice play on the left side, and I'm not sure if it was a cross or a shot, but it ended up at Diaz's feet, and he tapped it home.
Yeah, this is what good teams do, right?
He's on fire.
He is.
Sorry, go ahead.
Of course he is. This is what good teams do, though, right? When things aren't going totally their way, especially in a first half, they'll take advantage of maybe a bounce that they get or something that does turn around in their favor, and obviously they take advantage of having the opponent on 10 men almost immediately. Alejandro Diaz in such good form. All he really needs is a couple of touches of the ball and he can put it in the net. Future in a couple minutes guest of the show, Marco Bustos, with a really great assist. Also we should mention, as Finn has been asking in the chat, shout out to Emil Gazdov for his debut with this club. I thought he was excellent, especially in the first half, under fire. But in general, again, this is Pacific. This is what Pacific can do, right? When they aren't at their best, they can still find a way to get those results out of a game, and that's why they're, again, among the top teams in the league.
Yeah, you mentioned Finn. A lot of Finn in the chat, and Aaron, a lot of Josh watching from Nigeria as well. So appreciate you coming joining in on this one. Let's go back to that game and let's listen to the top goal scorer right now in the league. His thoughts on this after his brace is Alejandro Diaz.
The first half, we didn't keep possession, and James told us we need to have that possession we have been always getting. So on the second half, I think the team came out with a great mentality. We kept the ball a little bit more, and we created more chances than the first half, and we could finish those chances. So I think we did a great work in the mentality. In the mentality, as James said. So I think we were good on that part.
Diaz referring to James being Merriman. Let's hear from him.
I thought the first half we are obviously tired. We struggled to keep possession. We didn't take care of the ball. Defensively, we were second to everything as well. Valor was putting us under a lot of pressure. And we just spoke about it. We addressed it at halftime. We came here to get 3 points. That was the focus. We wanted to win this match and go home, and we needed to shift our mentality. We needed to find another gear after a lot of travel, and the group did. And full credit to the players for finding it, and the way that we came out in the second half, the way that we continued to work for each other and push. And then I think when they went down to 10 men, we started to show even more to push on and go and get the win. So really happy for the players, most importantly.
Football, huh? I mean, it's not that long ago, 5 weeks ago, James Merriman, his Pacific team, walking off that field losing against Halifax, scratching their head 5 weeks ago. Then they go on and score 15 goals in the next 5 games. So very impressive on that. We'll move Benny out. Thanks a lot, my man. And we'll bring in a substitute. And he's not a bad substitute to bring in, to be fair. Here he is. Here's Marco Bustos talking of this lethal attack right now. He's got a smile on his face. Why not? The sun is shining on the island, and they've got a brilliant game to play tonight in Concacaf Play. Thanks for joining us. Good morning out there. And how's the feeling in the club right now, my man?
No, first of all, thanks for having me again, and also good morning. No, it's big. This is, I would argue, probably the biggest game in club history, just in all aspects. Concacaf League. As a team, we've been going through kind of like an up and down. We started off really hot, and then we took a dip, and now we're starting to creep back up. And this is the time where we play a game like this, a big game. You want to be in a good groove, and I think we're in a good groove right now. The energy around the team is what it feels like, or what it felt like in the beginning, which is nice, which is what we want. And no, it's just super exciting for us, the players, the organization, the fans, and the city.
Maybe just to put a bow quickly on this Valor game over the weekend. That's a tough one for you guys, right? To travel all the way up from Jamaica to Winnipeg. You have to play this game against a team who's very up for this game. They press quite hard. They work very hard. How hard was it for you guys to kind of pull out that win, and how much does it say about your team that you are able to pull that out in a game where it's difficult for you. You're probably exhausted, and you've got this big game coming up on Tuesday.
Yeah, not many people, if any, kind of know the travel that we went through. It took us 2 days to get to Jamaica, and it's not an excuse from me. I just think it shows as a collective how strong we really are. We went to Jamaica. I feel we had a fair result from the travel that we had and how we played, and then coming back here and obviously having to take it back at home. But going from there, coming to Winnipeg's not easy. Valor's a team that, they've been getting much better since the first year, and they're a team that can compete. And we went there, and first half, everybody saw it. We didn't compete one bit, and yeah, we were tired. Our legs a bit tired, but that's the reality of modern football. Lots of travel, especially in this league, Concacaf League. That's something that we have to get used to as a group. But you go to Winnipeg, that's a team that's trying to get into the top four. They're right behind us, or right behind the top four. And for us to get the 3 points there, not really, playing a great way. I'm not going to say we got lucky, because we did score 2 good goals, and we stayed collective together, and we did walk away with the 3 points, which was very important. But that separates us from them, and I think that's the most important. And our goal from the beginning was be at the top. And these are the games where good teams find a way to win, and I think that's what we did. And it's important winning that before this big game we have today.
They're all fantastic points, my man. You use the word separates there, and I think that's a really good one. We all know at any level of football, sometimes that goal scorer, you just need him to be on, and you can win a game, and you think, oh, we'll take that. Diaz is up to 13 now. 2 goals, 2 touches on the weekend. The glancing header from your cross, I think, is a sensational goal. Not many people talk about how great a header that is, but what's it like working and playing with this guy every day? And has he got even better this year than he has last year for you?
Yeah, of course he's gotten better. That this is the most confidence I've ever seen him with, and I've always known Diaz has been a top player, and he has been a top player in this league since he arrived. I've played against him multiple times with the U17, U20 national team, and he was always a guy to watch out for. And to have him in my team, being able to assist him, or him assist me, it's been good. It's been exciting. I'm happy, really happy for him. He's becoming a family man now. He's having a baby. So these goals are important for him, and they're important for us as a team. Because without him, we don't walk away with 3 points on the weekend. So no, it's just nice. It's nice to have people in a groove, people feeling good. When you have a guy like this, out of nowhere, he can score a goal. Or out of nowhere, he can create a chance. These are things you want in the team, and these are things that you need if you want to win, or you want to separate yourself from the rest.
Diaz, obviously one of those players at Pacific, including Marco, yourself, and a couple others that has experience in these CONCACAF competitions. Maybe that's what brings us back to this game tonight. You guys know how difficult it can be to go down to these places, like you went down to Jamaica. I don't know. For me, a 0-0 draw, I think, definitely suits you guys, right? Coming home to this game where this other team has to play on turf. They have to play in your crowd. They're not used to traveling as much as you are, because you don't have to travel as far in the Jamaican League, right? So what was maybe the overarching thought coming out of that tough game in Jamaica, and how excited are you to have this second leg tonight?
Yeah, of course. Obviously that's comes into play. We said, they don't have to travel. They don't travel as much as we do. So this is going to be a big travel for them. Big difference. Turf, a big crowd. We're expecting a sellout today at Starlight Stadium, which is important. We need the fans to push us, really be that 12th man. And for them, it's not really about them today. I think it's just really about us. We come out the way we know we can come out, especially at home, and then the football speaks for itself.
Marco, on that point then, how important is it just to play the game and not the occasion?
Massive. And that's like anything, you know. This goes back to me individually also. You know, I had many games there where I'm chasing a goal, and it's not coming. And then for me, it was about coming back to, you know, don't chase the goal, just play the game. You know, and it's similar to, you know, don't chase that goal, don't chase the 3 points, don't chase the win, just play the game, be about the process. And, you know, if you do it in the right way, things will happen, and good things will happen, because the people that work hard, you know, good things come to those people. And I think we're a team that works hard, and us individuals, we work hard. So, you know, you just got to stay with the process, you know, start from minute 1 and take it minute by minute right to 90, because you never know.
You guys, as a club last year, had some massive games, some massive experiences. I know, Marco, it was tough for you to watch those from the sidelines, but I'm thinking of, you know, the Whitecaps game, the 2 playoff games that these guys played. As a club, as a collective, how important is that experience in terms of knowing what to expect in, you know, a knockout game with such fine margins? You've obviously played in knockout games yourself as a player throughout your career. How important is it to build or to draw from those experiences?
No, it's very important. You know, it's important because it teaches the individual to, you know, really be calm in the present moment. You know, the game against Calgary, you know, we went right to extra time. We ended up scoring, and then we held the lead. You know, and that's something that, you know, it really shows that, you know, you got to really take it minute by minute, play by play, because, you know, we got one chance, we scored, and then that was it. We go to the final. So I think that's important. You know, just the focus. You know, you have to be focused like no other, because, you know, this team scores today, we got to score 2.
Yeah.
You know, so be defensively sound first before anything, and then the rest will open up. And I think that's an important message that's been pushed around the group the last few days, was defensively compact, and then when the chances come, they're gonna come. You know, when we break transitionally, that's when I think we're most dangerous as an attack. And hopefully we're ourselves, and we just feel that net.
Last one for you before we let you go. You mentioned it. You're in this competition because you're winners. You're champions from last year. But you did all that on the road. You went to Cavalry on the road. You did it there. You went to Hamilton. You did it there. It almost feels like a little bit of a coming home party, you know, for you to celebrate tonight. I know you don't want to celebrate because you've got your business to do, but you mentioned it, biggest game in club history for you. The fact that you're at home, you get to do this with those fans, and any fans who are thinking still about coming out. What's that mean to have a big event like this to happen at Starlight?
No, it's huge. You know, I actually said this yesterday. You know, the game that this kind of mimics would be the Whitecaps game. You know, in terms of fans, the atmosphere, you know, everything just going on around the stadium. You know, it being an event. You know, it's a big event. You know, it's a big event for the island. It's huge. You know, this can mark another stepping stone for the CPL, for the island, for Pacific FC. You know, and you know, it is a big occasion, but for us players, it's just a game. You know, and I think that's the most important, and hopefully, you know, we do what we have to do, play the way we need to play, and we're all smiling after this.
Well, we're all pulling for you, my friend. No doubt about it. The champs, Pacific FC, take on FC Waterhouse of Jamaica tonight in second leg of Concacaf League play at Starlight Stadium on the island. Get out there if you've not got your tickets. There's a few tickets still left. Again, live on One Soccer, 7 o'clock local, 10 o'clock Eastern tonight here on Tuesday, August the 2nd, 2022. Marco, thanks again. Congrats on the assist this weekend. Keep up the great form, and we'll chat with you soon.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
We always appreciate you and your time. Appreciate you, Marco Bustos. Bringing in Mitchell Tierney now. And before we break down your game on the weekend in Calgary, Mitch, you've just been chatting with Tommy Wheeldon Jr. Breaking news today of Arvin Peppel's move to Luton Town. What's Tommy got to say about that to you when you talk to him?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a little bittersweet for Tommy Wheeldon Jr. in Cavalry, because obviously they lose their leading scorer and a player who, you know, through the month of May absolutely lit the league on fire, and scored a number of goals, broke the league record for a number of goals in a row. You know, so obviously they're sad about losing him, but this is, one of the express goals of the club. And he already talked about, as a team, they're moving on. Obviously, they have to move on to their next goal, which is obviously to win a CPL championship. But as a development staff, they have to move on as well. Their next goal is now to find the next Arab and Pebble, and they truly believe that within the Calgary footballing structure, there's so many of these players that exist now, and that this club can make a difference for. So, it was a little bit of a bittersweet sentiment from Tommy Wilton Jr.
But as usual, pretty insightful, and we appreciate you sending on that message to us live. Let's go to the game on the weekend, the third installment in league play of what they call Al Clasico. Cavalry had outscored FC Edmonton by a combined 6-1 in 2 previous league games this season, and narrowly knocked them out of the cup as well, for good measure. But this was another familiar tale in that story between these clubs, right, Mitch?
Yeah, it was a little bit because those score lines, as you said, now it's 8-1 in all in all competitions. But the difference, or 8-1 in the Canadian Premier League, but the difference is that it's so close. Like, it's much closer than it looks. This is the first goal here from Cavalry if you're watching on YouTube, and this came after a strong spell from Edmonton where they really. Throughout the start of the match, they had more time to prepare, and they really got on Cavalry. They were pressing them well. They had a few good interceptions, and then the experience of Cavalry wins out. And Alan Koch called this a match of moments, which I think is very fair. Cavalry had 2 moments, they took theirs. Edmonton had a couple of decent chances. They weren't able to convert on them. So there's where the experience rules out, but at the same time, there's really some positives to be taking out of these performances from Edmonton because they're pretty close. I know it's 11 now that they've lost to Cavalry, and Tommy Wilton Jr. said after the match he never intends to let an Edmonton side beat his side, but they're getting closer.
It's got to happen eventually, I think. I think Alan is right though that this is a game of moments. It's a set piece which Cavalry scores probably once a game at this point almost. Yeah. So that's to be expected, and then it's a fullback bombing on through the middle of the pitch and taking on defenders. Which obviously if you're Edmonton's midfield, you are pretty annoyed that you let that happen to you. I don't think that's ever something that you want to happen. But for the most part, right, Edmonton is a team that are kind of hunting for these passes to pick off. Right, they're hunting for these moments that they can go, because they know that that's the best way that they can score. Right, is to pick off those passes and to have these quick transitional moments. That pretty much is how they score most of their goals. Right, they pick these off, but again, they didn't necessarily find a lot of these moments. Mitchell, you mentioned Cavalry's defense in this game, specifically Karifa Yao, who scores a goal, but also is really solid at the back. Just what has impressed you about the way that Cavalry were able to maybe prevent more of those moments from coming out of this game?
Yeah, I think there was an expressed goal within Cavalry that knowing that their fullbacks were going to get forward, that Vliet and Alarcon were going to push up the wings. There was going to be space in behind, and they knew Edmonton was going to try and do this. The book on Edmonton is obviously open, and everyone is aware that they aren't dangerous in transition. So Yao and Klomp had to be very careful in defense. They had to be constantly switched on where, if Vliet's going to make a pass here, if that gets picked off, where do I need to be next? And they did a fantastic job of. There was a few chances. I think there was one early on in the first half where Kamara breaks through and it looks like a breakaway for a second, and then all of a sudden Yao and Klomp are all over him. He's got nowhere to go, and that chance is cut out. And I think that was what happened pretty consistently for Cavalry and Edmonton in this match. And it's a good point on the defenders, the Alarcon run, because that's really where they've been able to find goals lately. Is 5 of their last 6 goals have come either assisted or scored by defenders. And when Bevan's out, when Mason's just coming back to form, when you've lost Pepple, you need goals in different ways, and having them from 2 very, very good fullbacks offensively, and then you get your center backs up there on set pieces as they have all season. There's just another route to goal for Cavalry.
Yeah, Alarcon's look really, really good. Talking of really, really good, you know me, guys. I will talk about future Canadian international Karifa Yao anytime. But no one wants to hear from me. Let's hear from him.
It's a great feeling. We know that Edmonton and Calgary, it's like a rivalry. So to beat them again, you just feel good, and we go back to the winning ways. So that's incredible feelings.
Love that player, by the way. If FIFA came down with a mandate tomorrow where they said a domestic league has to have one player go to the World Cup to represent their team, which they should do,
It's
by the
him.
way, it's him. Get Karifa Yao on the Canadian men's national team fast and get used to him because he is a star. We'll go back to the to Spruce Meadows and reaction from the winning boss, the aforementioned Tommy Wheeldon Jr.
I think it was a very professional and clinical performance from the lads. They've been, one bad week doesn't make for a bad season, but we talked this week about, form is temporary, but class is permanent. I think today we knew that Edmonton would come in and give us everything they had, and I think they did, in fairness to them. Credit to Alan and his staff, because they made it tough for us, but I thought we were clinical with our game plan and our game management at the end to keep a clean sheet. If we're not going to score 3 or 4, we just made sure they didn't, and I thought that was what was pleasing today.
Tommy, of course, referring to the 3-game losing streak that they were on heading into this game. But Mitchell, you covered it. They get the Wild Rose Cup, 3 wins and 3 from them. And Tommy used the fans as a bit of motivation in your analysis. You wrote about that pre-game where you could hear the fans already out there before the match.
Yeah, he said, there was a bit of a lightning delay. So that meant that, the fans and their supporters and there go under the roof. And apparently it was very loud. You could hear it echoing through the entire stadium because of that. And otherwise, the atmosphere was just incredible. I obviously caught it on TV, but you could hear right away. It was like, wow, this feels like a proper cup final atmosphere. And so Tommy said he just opened the door and he said, listen, that's who we're playing for. This is a supporters cup. It's made by them. They want to win it. Let's go out and do that for them. And yeah, they went out and did.
FC Edmonton in the middle, though, now of what is a 6-game away stretch. This has been a tough stretch for them. But as you guys, I think, alluded to perfectly, sometimes it's not about evaluating the results. It's about evaluating the performances. They still lack the ability to score those goals. But within those games, I think we're still seeing some real bright spots. And as we've said consistently, there are Canadian Premier League players regularly on this team going forward. With more on this, the reaction of their head coach is Alan Koch.
We don't shy from difficult challenges and difficult questions. I've done this professionally now for 22 years. This is by far the hardest project to be involved in because when you lose a game, you question everything. And I guarantee you our players on the locker room right now are questioning, how did we play? Why did we do certain things? Why did this happen in the game? I think when they pause, like we will, and reflect on it, the game really came down to 2 moments. A set piece that we didn't manage well. We're going to make mistakes. That's part of the game. And allowing their fullback to push through and drive through the heart of our group. Other than those 2 moments, our young and experienced group went toe-to-toe with a fantastic team in this league.
As usual, a brutal and honest assessment from Alan Koch. A lot of young players continue to shine, though. And one of those players is Marcus Simmons. Let's hear from him.
We were set out to attack straight from the get-go, go forward, and don't be scared. We know that Cavalry is one of the top teams in the league, and they're a clinical team. 2 moments, as Alan said before, in the game is what let us down, and we need to learn when we go down a goal not to get our heads down and just keep going.
As usual, read Mitchell Tinney's outstanding stuff, CanPL.ca. Mitch, stick around for the end of the show if you don't mind. Let's put up the standings now and a reflection that the front 4 are clearly starting to get away. Valor still have that game in hand, and as we alluded to, 6 of their next 7 at home. We're going to find out this month what Valor's playoff credentials are like. Contenders or pretenders, we will know by Labor Day. Ottawa struggled on the weekend, obviously fall back to 4th after being top, and that just shows you how close it can be, Charlie. You can almost throw a blanket over these, but the big number on this for me is that 23 goal difference of Forge, and that's the story right now, Charlie O'Connor-Clark.
Yeah, it is pretty insane considering some of the other goal differentials, even in the top 4 with Atletico Ottawa having an even goal differential and Pacific being just 3. I think for me the big number is also in Forge's line. For me, it's there's 16 games played, having 2 in hand on Pacific and Cavalry, and still being top of the table. Forge definitely have fancied themselves all year to end up at the top of that table there. We're seeing it manifested right now, and we always knew that they've pretty much had games in hand all season, and now they are rounding into incredible form, and I think Pacific and Cavalry will both be really keen on not letting them get too far ahead. They both have to win their games coming up as well to make sure that they don't let Forge ahead of them too much.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That is the standing so far through this week, and here's a look at next week. Before we show you the schedule board, I promised off the top, I've got a remarkable stat. I don't know if you guys will think this is remarkable, so it might just literally be me, but stay with me and let me humor you for a second. We have now had 69 games played, I think it has been in the Canadian Premier League. You know where I'm going with this. We've had 17 draws, 26 home wins, and 26 away wins. That's right. The away teams have caught up. They've caught up with the win by York on Monday. They've caught up. In April, it was 8-2 in wins for home teams. And then since then, it's been gradually going more and more. Away wins in June, 8 compared to home wins 6. And away wins in July, 9 compared to 7. So this has been going on for some time this summer. The away wins have been trending in the right direction. And now they've tied. They were down 8-2 in April, and now it's back up at 26-26, which is absolutely remarkable for me. Read into that what you want. It might just be scheduling, organizers, best teams playing away from home, but there is something to be said about home field advantage when it's colder. So we'll see if that trends back in that direction when it gets closer to September and October. But keep that in mind, boys, because the Predictor fans want to hear what you have to say about some of these scores. So let's put the schedule up. And as usual, it starts on Wednesday this week and a massive game at home, let's be honest. Valor take on Cavalry. That is a big game, no doubt about it. Can Valor turn around their miserable home form in terms of goals? So we alluded to 6 out of 7 in that one. So read into the stats all you like on that one. We'll go to the weekend to pick some of these games. Forge against Halifax. And there was a game last season where Forge played Halifax with João Morelli, and Forge destroyed them 4-0 in that game, if I remember, or maybe 4-1. And Forge were marvelous. And the way that they're playing right now, 30 goals in the last 9, I think it'd be pretty obvious to say that you might get 4-0, 4-1 again in this one. That's my prediction for you, to give you a bit of a hand. And for the boys, let's give you Ottawa, Edmonton. Charlie, what are you thinking on this?
Oh, this is an interesting. I think Ottawa are pretty hungry after that Forge game. They need a bounce back at home quite badly. I mean, obviously, so are Edmonton after the Calgary game, but I'm going to go with maybe a 3-1 for Ottawa.
3-1, yeah, wounded animal indeed. And a second home win, a second home game, maybe a second home win, we'll find out. Second home game of the week for Valor in the come-on game of the week. I'll be back in the One Soccer studio for that against York on Sunday. Mitchell, over to you to pick the final one for this.
I don't know if I'll go as far as to pick a second home win, but I think that it will be a win for Valor. I think they match up stylistically well against York United, and this is a game they really, really need. Basically every home game at this point they really, really need, but this especially.
In the previous matchup between these two teams earlier this season, commentating on that game, I remember Sean Reyes scored an 87th minute screamer to win that game by 1-0 in a game that York played very well in and missed a penalty, and in the end got nothing from that. Well, thanks again for this, boys. We appreciate it. We end the show on a historical moment for the Canadian Premier League. You'll remember a few weeks ago, Cal Becker became the first player to reach 100 appearances as a Canadian Premier League player for Forge. Well, we had the second one this weekend. That's right. Swedish star Alexander Ashnode Jonsson became the second player to reach 100 appearances in the Canadian Premier League, and forever the first overseas player to reach that milestone. A special player and a special milestone. Here he is.
När jag flyttade runt halva jorden 2019 visste jag inte vad jag skulle vänta mig av Kanada. Jag hade pratat med både Bobby och Costa över telefon och fick en bra bild av vad de ville ha ut av mig och deras plan för laget och ligan. Det var spännande att vara del av något nytt, även om jag inte hade någon aning om vad det skulle ta mig. I början, att vakna upp till en snöig och grå mars månad bestående av ett endast se motorvägar och parkeringsplatser, att ha lämnat min familj, mina vänner och min hund, gjorde att jag ifrågasatte om jag gjort rätt val. Som tur var så stämde den enda saken jag visste om kanadensare. Alla var otroligt trevliga och välkomnande, vilket gjorde övergången betydligt enklare. Under de här 100 matcherna har jag upplevt både fantastiska och förödande ögonblick. Jag har vunnit finaler och jag har förlorat finaler. Jag har rest till platser jag aldrig trodde jag skulle resa till. Och allt är tack vare mina fantastiska lagkamrater genom åren. Bobby och Costa för att de övertalade mig att komma hit, Forge och CPL för att de gjort allt det här möjligt. Men främst tack vare Hamilton för att ni tog in mig. För att ni har varit där i snö, regn och rusk. För att ni har fått mig att känna som att jag har ett andra hem här. Att se kanadensisk fotboll växa de senaste åren har varit anmärkningsvärt. Det har varit underbart att ha varit en del av det. Och jag kan inte vänta till resten av världen ser hur mycket talang som finns i det här landet. Efter 100 matcher är jag glad och tacksam över att min fotbollsresa har tagit mig hit. Thank you, Canada.